Hi there, fish tankers. Welcome back. How often do we hear on the Facebook or the WhatsApp aquarium groups this pleading call for help? Help, all my fish are dying. I came home and the fish are dying. Some are floating, some are on the bottom, and the ones that are left don't look so good. They don't look like they're going to make it. Usually somebody who's a beginner in the hobby, but not always. So when the fish are dying left, right and center and you want to save what is left, what do? Stick around and find out. My fish are dying, my fish keep dying, I'm almost giving up on the hobby. What do? That is a question that requires a lot of information to answer properly. And sometimes to get a better answer, we need to ask a better question. So when you tell me my fish are dying, I'm going to ask you the first question, and that would be, are all the fish dying? Are they all under distress, all or at least most of them? Or is it only certain individuals? Now, if all your fish are dying, in other words, some are dead and all the rest are there breathing very hard, that's your one sign, or maybe they have a bit of reddened gills and reddish fins, but no other external symptoms. That's my next question. Do they have any symptoms besides breathing hard and maybe a bit of redness? And if your answer is no, that's the only symptom they have, they're dying and they're breathing hard, then the answer is quite simple. Your fish are being poisoned. Now, when that poisoning occurs, 99.9% of the time, it's either or both ammonia and nitrite, NO2 poisoning. And then my next question will be, is it a new tank? And did you cycle the tank? And if you don't know what cycling means and you don't know what the aquarium nitrogen cycle is, go and Google it or look on YouTube. There's plenty of good videos about that. But that simply means that you have a new tank, you put in the fish immediately, and there's no beneficial bacteria established on the filters and on the substrate to convert the toxic ammonia and nitrite that the fish secrete to less harmful nitrate, NO3. So then you have a problem. But we can't go into reasons for it. You need to act fast. So you got to do a water change as big as possible. Usually people say don't change more than 50% of the water, or if the change less. But now it's a question of we've got to move fast. You need the lesser of two evils. So what I suggest is drain the water as much as you can. Just leave enough space for enough water for a fish to swim in. And then you've got to refill it with new water. But now you've got to be careful. You can't give them a temperature shock now by putting in cold water. Just go to the mixer tap and feel with your hand what the aquarium water is, or you can use a thermometer if you don't have that sort of feeling. Feel what that is. Fiddle with a mixer tap, get the temperature right, or else just take warm water and mix it in a bucket of cold water. Usually about 20% or so warm water, the rest cold water gets the temperature okay, but just mix it so that the temperature is fine. And then you've got to add water conditioner. That's crucial because there's chlorine in the water, sometimes chloramine even, and you have to use water conditioner. I'm not sponsored by any of these products. The products I tell you about are products that I simply used or what I'm still using over all these years. So I like for water conditioner either Seachem Prime or Seachem Safe. They do the same thing. One is a powdered form that's more economical for big volumes of water. I use Seachem Prime. Add that to the new water in order to neutralize all the stuff in the tap water, and you do that massive water change. Now, if you told me that no, you didn't add all, it's not a new tank and you didn't add all the fish, but this is happening, then I'm going to ask you, did you change all your filter media or simply change your filter? People sometimes don't understand. They throw away all the filter media and they put new media in, and then they throw away the beneficial bacteria, and the same thing happens. There's nothing to convert the ammonia and the nitrite, and your fish gets poisoned. So that equates to the same thing. Always wash your filter media and all tank water to preserve the beneficial bacteria. If you do that, you'll never have this problem. Right, I haven't had this problem since my young days as a kid from fish keeping, because I never change all the filter media at once, and I never add fish to a brand new aquarium immediately if everything is new, the filters and everything. So now you've done that water change. Now you've alleviated the poisoning. So they may or may not make it. Some may still die. So you've got to now do something with that ammonia and nitrite to bind it so that it doesn't become toxic, because you're going to have the same problem again the next day. So what I would do, if you look at some of these products, Prime, I think Seachem's got something called AmGuard, those products according to the instructions. It's not going to take the ammonia away. It's just going to bind it, make it harmless for 24 to 72 hours. Of products are different, and that way you just get a window of opportunity. But now you've got to watch your fish. You have to, if the fish are not eating, don't feed them at all, or keep it to the absolute bare minimum. You don't want to add more biomass to the tank, and you keep on doing these massive water changes every day, every second day, as it is required. Those products should stabilize your ammonia for a while, but you're going to have to keep doing these big water changes until the fish stabilize, until your beneficial bacteria recovers or develops, and it can actually get that biological process going that converts ammonia to nitrite to nitrate, and then you should be out of the woods. Now, if it's not all the fish dying, it's only some, I'm going to ask you once again, are they showing symptoms, or is there just an individual species of fish dying, that specific fish, or sitting there or looking funny? And then I'll ask you, right, what fish is it? And then do a Google on that fish and get some information. For instance, live bearers like enders, not so badly, but guppies, swordtails, platies, and especially mollies. These mollies, we usually get in black, but now in all sorts of colors. They don't like soft water. So I've got very soft water coming out of my tap. pH is 6.5, but there's almost no hardness at all. Guppies, platies, mollies especially, they're not going to like that. They'll sit in the corner and they'll shimmy, which means they swim in one spot and they move their bodies like that, but there's no external symptoms. And that's because they have no minerals in the water, no hardness. Then the next question would be, you can increase that by adding some crushed coral, or I'll use something like Seachem alkaline buffer. I'll dose that because that'll work quicker than the crushed coral. I'll do both. But now you've got to ask yourself, what do I have them in with? You know, if you have baby fish that are soft water species, and that's not going to work, then you're going to affect the other fish. So check that first. But if it's okay, if it's a bunch of live bearers, then just gradually change your water parameters. Add a small dosage of alkaline buffer product and put something there. It can be permanent, like crushed coral, something that works well. Put it in a filter bag, in your hang-on back filter, in your canister filter, or just put it on the substrate on the bottom, and that'll get that going. If it's not a case of that water parameters are wrong, it could be that a particular fish is being bullied, or they could just be sick. Now that's the next question. Are the fish showing external symptoms? So at this stage, I didn't mention it because I know beginners, they don't buy test kits, but test the water for ammonia and nitrite just to make sure your water quality is fine. But now there's something external going on, and the most common one, I went around trying to get B-roll of sick fish at shops, and I couldn't find any sick fish, and all the photos on the web are copyrighted, so you can just go and Google it. But the most common disease is white spot. It looks like the fish has been sprinkled with salt, and it's a little cyst, and it is round, and it is round, and you can see it sits on top of a fish's skin. It's not blotchy. It's like it's been sprinkled with little granules of salt, and that's white spot, and that you can treat. I have used in the past Proudazone from Waterlife. It'll treat parasites, and it'll also treat fungus. Now you can sometimes also get velvet, which is much finer. It looks just like the name says that the fish is covered with velvet. That's also common. Treat it with Proudazone. That has worked well for me in the past. There are other products out there like Paragard, but Proudazone with Waterlife is what I have always used in the past. Treat it with that. Or the other thing that can happen is if they have cloudy eyes, if they have bloody, blotchy skin, things like that. If they have fin rot, then it's a bacterial disease, and treat that with Mixazin. You just follow the instructions on the bottles. Another Water Life product, I'm not sponsored by them. And you can also use another product range, and this is the one that I use mostly nowadays. The distribution is just very troublesome, but it's a nice herbal product, and that's Microbe Lift Artemis and Herb Tana. For parasitic things like white spot and velvet and things like that, you use Herb Tana. For the bacterial stuff like fin rot, ulcers, cloudy eyes, that you use the Artemis for. And it's also a nice thing that I add to the aquarium when you add new fish. You should always quarantine new fish, but as I've said, I manage the shop in way distant past in the 90s. I know people don't do it. I know 80% of fish keepers out there don't quarantine their fish. So what I like about these two products, because they're not as harsh as the others, if you're going to put in new fish, get them from a reputable pet shop. Never buy fish when there are other fish dying and sick in the tank. And if you have a shop that you know quarantine their fish, that'll be golden. Not a lot of shops do that, but there are shops that do. That'll take a lot of your risk away. Prevention is always better than cure. So in that case, if I put in new fish, if they are not quarantined, I'm not saying don't quarantine your fish, but if that is not happening, I like these two products, the Artemis and the Herb Tana. Just when you put them in, dose Artemis on the one day, wait a day in between, and then you dose a single dose of Herb Tana. That helps a lot. So that is it. Usually 99% of the time when people say, oh, my fish are dying, it's because the biological filtration, the beneficial bacteria is not developed, or they've destroyed it by simply replacing all the filter media, or replacing the whole filter with a media and taking it away, or washing it under hot water, something like that. That is almost always the case. And then there's only one way. You need to do big water changes, and you need to bind that ammonia, and you can use some product for that. But even if you don't have product, what will also help is if you use 1 tablespoon of aquarium salt for every 4 liters, or if you have sensitive fish to salt, which will be scaleless fish like your clown loaches, Pakistani loaches, yo-yo loaches, coolie loaches, all of those fish, as well as corridoras, as well as tetras, they don't like salt. Then don't use 1 tablespoon for every 4 liters, use 1 teaspoon for every 4 liters. That is a low dose, and that will be safe, and eventually you'll remove it with water changes, but that will also help them to combat ammonia and nitrite poisoning along with the water changes. So that's it from me. That is the emergency go-to procedure if suddenly all your fish are dying. And the takeaway from it then is always buy healthy fish, quarantine, and most importantly, run in your tank properly, go through the nitrogen cycle so that there's beneficial bacteria, then you stock slowly, and never throw away or change all your filter media at once, or wash it under the warm water tap so you destroy the beneficial bacteria. If it's none of those things, the other thing could be poisoning. If a house was fumigated and you didn't remove a tank or covered it properly, or a kid dropped something in the aquarium, a toddler, you know how that is, something like that happened. And in that case, same story. You've got to do the big water changes. The product to buy, the ammonia and nitrite, can also help, which it might have destroyed your beneficial bacteria, but same thing. So I hope this will help you in an emergency and stand you in good stead. Please, guys, if you find it useful, smash the thumbs up and also subscribe. And until I see you guys again, keep taking good care of those domestic denizens of the deep.